Hi, and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Accountant. Today we have podcast royalty, author and accountant. It's none other than Lucy Cohen, co-founder of Mazuma Accounting. Hi, Lucy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Mike. Nice to see you.
We kind of touched on it a little bit, but you've got it in the background of your first book. Congratulations. Forget the first year.
Thank you. Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Yeah. So it's really a book about, and it's something I started writing it before the pandemic, and then the pandemic happened and it stole all of my creativity. So I found it very hard to write and be creative creativity requires a bit of bandwidth and space, and whilst you're kind of firefighting during a kind of global plague, it's kind of hard to be creative. So I kind of came back to it towards the kind of second half of last year, and it's about is it's about building a life that works for you. And I think that when you run a business, there's a lot of business. There are so many business books, and a lot of them they take an idea that's they take one idea and they spread it out over 300 pages. And a lot of them are about yeah, you can do it, and yeah, woo, make 1 million, and how to get to 7 figures in 3 weeks, or this is how I built my multi-million-dollar empire in 2 minutes, or whatever. And there's just a load of that nonsense out there. And I think I talk in there about when I started my business, Dragon's Den was really popular, and it was all about what's your growth, what's your acceleration, what's your business valued at, all this kind of stuff. And it kind of breeds this very I think unhealthy attitude to what running a business can really look like. There's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years about mental health. I'm very honest about my own mental health, and I just think that kind of rampant growth focus can be really damaging. Now, look, I've always said we're a high growth company. We are, but not at the expense of my sanity. And it's doing it in a way that's measured. So the book's about understanding that when people say things will be better this time next year we'll be millionaires, or if I had £1 million, my life would be fixed. Actually, you already have all of the tools in your life to lead the life you want to lead, or if you don't have them right now, they're really a lot more attainable and closer to you than you think they are. You don't need it. You don't want £1 million. What you want is freedom and financial freedom, and that means not worrying about bills. That means kind of within reason having the things you want. I mean, look, if you want to have a private jet and spend £1 million in Cartier jewelry, maybe you do need to earn a couple of million quid and the rest. But if you actually want what most people want, which is a nice, relatively stress-free life with financial freedom, it doesn't take £1 million to do that. It just requires you to kind of shift your focus a little bit in how you run your business. And that's what it's about, really. It's kind of about that. It's sense checking that top line, that it's kind of expansion of, turnovers, vanity, and profit sanity, and all that kind of stuff. It's really talking about that. You don't need gazillions in the bank to lead a meaningful, purposeful, and happy life.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And it's spot on, because I think it's very easy to kind of get wrapped up in being an entrepreneur and hustle mentality, and before you know it, you've kind of fallen down this rabbit hole, and you kind of as you say, the mental health side of it just gets left to the side, and you're striving to achieve all these things that people tell you should be doing. As you said, the kind of the nonsense business books that kind of tell you should be come on, you're going to make X million, and this is how you grow, and this is how you scale. It doesn't say anywhere anything about how to just kind of be yourself,
I've got a rule that if I ever see an entrepreneur put up a meme that says rise and grind, I unfollow them. I'm I don't need that in my life. I'm not in the 5 a.m. club. No way.
No, exactly. I mean, but you say that, but you still have managed to do a lot of different things despite not being the 5 a.m. club. And it's, I suppose what people kind of say now is it's not about the amount of time you have or the amount of hours in the day. It's what you choose to focus on. And you're an amazing example of that, I think, given everything that you've achieved so far.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, but yeah. And so that kind of brings me to, well, I was going to ask you 2 questions, I guess, around the book, and you kind of given us a lot of information. But one of the things was, it's a question I've asked myself, do you think, maybe not so much for older business owners, but younger business owners, do you think that we're kind of like in a era or a time of that's like post profit maximization, where, you know, people aren't just thinking about how much money I can make to approach the business rather than just like money, money, money? Do you think,
Oh, yeah.
do you see that?
Absolutely. And I see it across all generations. I think, and again, the last 2 years, I think, has really kind of accelerated this this change in people's perceptions. Even if you just look about the location of where people work, I haven't got a single job that we advertise at the moment where people aren't going, can I work from home? Because let's face it, why do you need to go into an office? Now, there's arguments for and against, and I think a little bit of contact time in the office and kind of team learning and informal learning and that sort of thing is very valuable. But in terms of do I need somebody to sit at a desk 9 to 5? And no, of course I don't. I just need them to do their job. And I don't really care how they slice that up as long as it's done and our clients are happy and they're happy. So yeah, and I think the pandemic's accelerated it. I think that, you know, let's face it, it made people lost things and family and people and loved ones and jobs and opportunities during something that was completely out of their control. And I think it really highlights that kind of whatever deity you may not believe in, but taking God in the kind of holistic term, there by the grace of God go you. You know, you're lucky to be here. You've got one life, and you kind of have a duty to, I think, you don't have a duty to, but you probably want to live as happy a life as you possibly can in the uncertain time that you have. Why would you become a slave to your job? Why would you create something for yourself that makes you miserable? Create happiness, and then the money will sort of follow it in the way that you want to. So yeah, I think it's the pandemic and the events that's going, the current affairs going on in the world at the moment. It really makes people reevaluate, what do I want out of my life? Do I want to work for the same employer for 40 years on a 9 to 5 with a fixed pension plan and then retirement's retirement? Or do I want to leave a kind of interesting, meaningful, purposeful life that, you know, that looks different to what I might have thought of when I was in sixth form or something, and that's fine. So yeah, I think it's there's definitely a shift in how people see the world and how people see their place in the world. People also are much more interested in doing something with a social conscience, doing something that contributes to society, that kind of fills that part of their life as well, gives them fulfillment in that sense. And that's something we've seen a lot of a trend towards now as well. People kind of, you know, setting up community interest companies, not for profits. They're much more prevalent than they used to be at a kind of micro level. And I think that's really exciting, actually.
Yeah, it is exciting, and it ties into this thing that, like, I've seen pop around a few times. I must confess, I don't know too much about it, but it's this concept, a Japanese concept called Ikigai, and I don't know if you came across it when you were sort of reading.
I have heard about it, but yeah.
And I've just pulled it up on my screen now just to tell you, like, just to explain what it is. It's like 4 circles. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's sort of like the 4 circles are, and they're like a Venn diagram, they overlap. And they sort of say what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're good at. And then they all sort of like overlap to show like the combination of each one is your passion, your mission, your profession, or your vocation. And then basically, like, right in the middle is Ikigai, which is your reason for being.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like what you're saying, you know, from what we've experienced collectively over the past few years, is that we're just trying to find more balance rather than being at the extremities of the diagram. We're all trying to like move towards the center so that we find this reason for being. And, you know, yeah, like, that doesn't mean, like, you know, I don't think it means necessarily that you can't be employed and still find your reason for being.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean you have to mix all of the things together. It just means that in your life, you need to try and kind of like balance them, as far as I'm aware. This is like kind of my interpretation of it, but yeah, it's a really nice thing.
Yeah, no, I think as well, like, and a lot of people over the last couple of years have had personal traumas, myself included. I was really ill last year, and it just makes you think, you know, I very nearly wasn't here now, and, you know, I'm lucky, and it just makes you think, you know, if that had been the moment, if that had been it, like, would I have been happy with everything I'd done? And do you want to make a change? And you don't have to wait for those moments to make a change in your life. If you don't have to follow a path that makes you unhappy. You do have the power within you to change it. And it might not happen immediately, and it might be really slow, but actually you can take little steps there. And I think within the accountancy industry in particular, we're seeing a lot more of this kind of compassionate accountancy coming through, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. And thank you so much for like telling us about your book and stuff. And I'm definitely looking forward to reading it. It sounds amazing. So thank you. To make sure you catch every episode, subscribe to the channel or sign up to the Sage Advice newsletter at the bottom of the page.